What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
What's up, Fantasy Points? We are back for week 4 of the DFS cage match. There, I got the screen working there. A little bit of a changing of guard this week. The first 2 weeks of this contest, the guests won. Not the case last week. We'll get into the results from last week, but a reminder of how this all works. We're going to be drafting DraftKings teams against each other. It'll be a snake draft. The guest will get to pick where he goes first. And then this week, because it's an even week, I'm going to go before Jake. And it's just going to be a snake draft, doing one pick or 2 picks on the turns at a time, drafting DraftKings lineups. And we're drafting for charity. So each of us choosing a charity. The winning charity is going to get $100 directly from Fantasy Points. And what you're seeing right here is the winning charity from last week. We'll go over all of the charities, but first want to introduce my guest. Actually, we'll start with Jake. We'll start with my co-host, Jake Tribbey. Jake, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, despite the Twitter onslaught on my character from both you and the Swifties. Today, I am holding my head high and ready to defend my honor in the cage.
All right, Jake is ready to go. And our guest today, Fantasy Guru Drew, a longtime frenemy of mine. We talk a lot of trash to each other, but we actually get along pretty well when we're not talking trash. Also came out with a new podcast today. So Drew, first of all, tell me how you're doing today. And also tell me a little bit about this podcast that you just released today for the first time.
I'm doing great. I'm very thankful to be here. Thank you to you both. Thank you to Fantasy Points. A lot of people are saying that this is the most plus EV show to be on. You guys are giving out $100 every single week, and 2 out of 3 times it goes to the guests. So I like that. You mentioned the podcast. So Justin Steele and I, as you know, Neil, we talk football almost every single night. We'll talk DFS. We'll talk season long. We'll talk off-season best ball, you name it. And Justin had this idea a couple months ago. He's like, dude, I just like talking football. And in my off season, what if we started a podcast? And my response to him was, I have no idea how to host a podcast, how to produce a podcast. If we are going to do something, it is going to be very poorly produced. And it's just going to be something light and fun. He's like, dude, I love it. If it's even just for one listener, let's do it. So we called it No Huddle for that reason. We're going to wing it every single time. You joined us in our second episode, so thank you so much. It just got posted today, and we're very excited to be doing that. So thank you so much for having me and for sharing that.
And if you're doing it for just one listener, that's going to be me. So I appreciate you guys doing this podcast for me. I've been very much looking forward to it. You can see in the background of behind Drew, there is a No Huddle that lights up. He's got a little sign behind him. Didn't light it up for this podcast. And Drew says Justin Steele. There are people who watch this who might not know who Justin Steele is. They might just be football guys. Justin Steele, of course, an all-star pitcher for the Chicago Cubs that Drew is going to be doing this podcast with. So that should be a lot of fun. But we will move on to this show, the cage match, and the winner last week. Drum roll, please. It was me. I finally won. The guest did not win, not just by a little bit. We'll go through the lineups. We'll take a look at the contest, but I absolutely dominated last week and finally was able to come through for the walk to defeat ALS, the ALS Association. This program was suggested to me by Trey, our producer. This organization has done a lot for Trey's friend's father has ALS. And Trey told me that the group has done a lot of great work for his friend's father. So finally I came through, and they are going to get $100 from Fantasy Points for the win last week. Of course, Jake has not won yet. So through 3 weeks, it has been the exact same charity here. But Jake, do you want to give a quick word on Friends of North Augusta Animals?
Yeah, it's a great charity. I'm a big time animal lover. They do a lot of great stuff for a lot of the local animals here in Augusta. One of my favorite things that they do is a catch, neuter, release program for stray cats. A lot of stray cats, especially in larger cities. And I believe, although I'm not 100% sure, that the cat that showed up to me and my girlfriend's door that we ended up adopting was caught, neutered, and released by this great charity. So excited to win $100 for them this week after letting them down for the first 3 weeks of the season.
We'll see. I feel like you've talked the talk quite a bit, and we just have not seen it come through yet for this charity. we also have Drew coming in for the first time. Of course, this is Drew's first appearance. Feeding America is the organization. Drew, do you want to tell us about this organization a little bit?
Yeah, I actually posted on Twitter and I said, hey, give me your suggestions of a charity that's important to you. And somebody suggested the local food bank. So I thought Feeding America would be a great decision. And I've done that in the past. I love, my wife and I, we have our charities that we like to do, but I also love to kind of crowdsource charities. I know we're very blessed. I'm very blessed. And the idea of being able to provide somewhere that's important to someone else, I think is really cool. And so Feeding America, I know they do great work. The idea, I have 3 kids, our 4th one on the way. The idea of anyone going to bed hungry, especially a kid, just kills me. And so, I think this is a great charity doing great work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great choice there. And mine actually not all that dissimilar, but I'm donating to Drew Dinkmeyer's charity. Drew Dinkmeyer of Establish the Run does this Welly Maker contest every year where he donates to, or asks people to donate. He donates as well to Charity Water, which I think is an awesome organization, bringing clean water to people around the world. Everybody knows how important hydration is in general. Just having access to clean water is something that we take for granted here in the U.S. Well, at least most parts of the U.S. take it for granted. Certainly kind of something that I'm always drinking water. I love staying hydrated, and I just can't imagine not having access to clean water. So I very much appreciate the work that Drew does. And also I think Drew is somebody that I trust. So the fact that he is sort of leading the charge here, that makes me want to give to this organization. So giving to the Welly Maker, Charity Water via Drew Dinkmeyer's Welly Maker is going to be my charity of choice for this week. And this week only because I'm going to win this week, and then I'll have to do a new charity next week. But before we start this week's contest, let's go over last week's contest a little bit. And Drew, we always make the guest give a review of the previous guest's team. So I'll review my team, Jake will review his team. But first, last place finish last week for Jordan Vanek's team here. What do you think about it, Drew?
Well, I wore the beanie on purpose because there's a lot of snowflakes on this team. This is a little rough here. And I hate to say it, but none of the picks necessarily are bad. I watched the episode. I thought Jordan did a really good team, put together a really good lineup. And I watched every single game this past week. There was not a bad pick here. Swift was a questionable pick in hindsight, but the matchup was amazing. Nico Collins, they tried so hard to feed him towards the end. It was just a tough defense. Your Vikings have a great defense there going. Naylor looks great. I did actually question in that moment the upside that Naylor could bring. And I think he, even with the touchdown, we're looking at 12 points, which I think is maybe his ceiling. And McMillan, a couple low upside plays, but we're only trying to beat 2 people here. So ultimately, I thought this was a really good lineup. And I had a lot of the same players in my 150 pool.
I will say for Jalen Naylor, related to his upside, he did have a 30-yard touchdown called back. So, that's a little bit more upside that he could have potentially had. Of course, you're not relying on 2 touchdowns if you're drafting a wide receiver 2 or 3. So, probably not a ton of upside there, but he's also, I think, capable of splash plays. I think he is kind of a big play receiver. So I didn't totally hate that pick. He was something that Scott and I talked about a good bit on the show as a player that we kind of liked, but 12.4 did fine for his salary of 4,400. Didn't absolutely crush there. Jake, congratulations. This is your best performance to date. You got second place here. Really, I mean, way to go, Jake. You want to tell me about how you feel about your team here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Neil. I really appreciate it. We are clearly trending up here. The Derek Carr, Rashid Shaheed connection was just not there. I believe he had 2 touchdowns go through his hands. So that was pretty disappointing. And, I think those 2 touchdowns would have amounted to around 90 fantasy points. So that probably would have put me over the top here. Yeah. Jordan Mason and Devon Achane were 2 of the best running back plays of the slate. Really can't fault myself for going that direction. Godwin and Neighbors were, right there with him as just top tier projected values in really great spots. I thought, both had the matchup as well. Brock Bowers was, pretty much everyone's favorite tight end play of the slate. Jordan Whittington was a bit more of a speculative bet, but I did have maybe too much confidence after he ran every route when Cooper Kupp was off the field in week 2. Really, I think I just drafted the highest projected team and the fish got lucky last week, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't really see it that way. I think Jake kind of went with a chalk a little bit, sort of a boring team. No real upside here. I don't know. And you see, you can kind of see it in just the result: 89 total fantasy points. Whereas my team, which won the first pick that I made last week, was of course George Kittle, who was fully healthy at the time. No indication that he was going to be unhealthy. He was going to miss the game. He comes down the next day. He's questionable. Ultimately misses the game. I posted on Twitter. I said, "What do we think the rule should be here? 1v1 or can I make a 2v2 swap, because I'm going to be leaving like $1,400 on the table or something like that if I swap off of George Kittle." And I took the ruling of the crowd, which was I could only make a 1v1 swap, and I had Jalen Hurts, so I decided to go with Dallas Goedert as my tight end. Of course it did not matter even the slightest bit, because I lapped the field by so much last week. I could have played no tight end. In fact, I could have done a 2v2, a 3v3, where instead of just swapping in players, I could have just swapped out players and just taken zeros at several positions and still would have won this contest. That is how much I dominated by last week. And honestly, it's a beautiful team. People laughed at me last week. Jordan laughed at me when I drafted David Montgomery. Jake laughed at me when I drafted Romo Dunze. Everybody was laughing at Neil. And then we put up 173 fantasy points without our first overall pick. It is just incredible. This team that I put together last week, I think I figured it out. I'm on a roll now. I think all my teams going forward are going to put up 170 plus points. Don't really have much else to say about this team other than it dominated. That's really all you need to say when you put up a domination like this. Romo Dunze, by the way, that is one from this team. That's the one that kind of stuck with me, of like players that I remained on. So I felt good about that pick in particular, the one that I got laughed at the most for, Romo Dunze last week. Now gets the Rams this week, by the way. Kind of interesting, but Keenan Allen maybe back. All right, enough about my domination from last week. Let's start talking about my domination this week, or just draft towards my domination this week. Drew, you are the guest, so you get to choose where you want to go.
Yeah, I went back and forth here. I think there's a lot of really good plays that I think will all gravitate towards the top. So I actually considered going number 2 so that I could get a couple more picks a little bit earlier. But with that being said, we had some new news come up today. And when I was looking at the slate early, value was really, really difficult. And the idea to grab a 4.1K running back who might see close to 15 to 20 touches in Roschon Johnson in a really good matchup, I think I had to take it. So I'm going number 1.
Drew is going number 1. Drew asked me earlier who was first between myself and Jake. And I wonder if that affected his decision at all, because I'm going before Jake, and I know Drew wants to be able to draft right next to me. I'm sure wants to snipe me all the time for Max Payne. Roschon Johnson, yeah, that is a very solid pick. That honestly, I don't think I would have made that pick. I had not thought that far ahead of. Oh yeah, projections have not adjusted yet for Roschon Johnson, so that's a good thinking. Honestly, that is joking aside, that is kind of one thing that went my way last week, because I sort of like late in the draft was like, oh yeah, that's right, Cam Akers should be starting. I guess he didn't really do much, but like there were things like that where like the projections just hadn't adjusted yet around the industry for certain news that was coming. And honestly, I have not given enough thought to it this week. So maybe we'll luck into something similar this week where you can kind of anticipate the news a little bit. I like that pick though. 4,100 Roschon Johnson. You're right. There's not a ton of value on this slate. Man, there is one player who is, not a super value pick, but I'm thinking about doing it. No, I'm going to go with my gut. It's not the top projected play. I'm going to let Jake just continue to slam the top projected play. I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson here.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Andy Dalton,
he's the top projected play. What are you talking about?
He's the top projected point per dollar play.
He's the top value of the entire slate, Neil.
Well, then you're right. He's not everywhere. Okay. I looked at several projections versus the first one I looked at was Fantasy Points, and he was there, and I was like, yes, that's my pick. But he's not at other places. Just for the reference, there are other players who project better point per dollar. So then I just feel good that I got your hopes up that you were going to get Deontay Johnson, and then I just rugged you. So that felt good. Anyway, Jake, you get back-to-back picks for your first and second round picks.
Yeah, this is pretty tough for me because I was really starting to get excited when Neil gave his speech about, not taking the highest projected player because I knew I wanted Deontay Johnson as my first round pick so badly. Okay, instead here, I don't know what's so funny, Neil. I'm going to go with Brandon Ayuk for my first pick. He started with a bit of a stinker last week, obviously, but he's facing a New England defense that is the league's #1 pass funnel so far. They also run a ton of man coverage. Ayuk has historically dominated against man coverage, so I really like him this week. Overall, I imagine he'll be one of the most popular plays of the slate. And then I feel like I probably should go running back here. And you know what? I will grab the value in a resurgent offense with Chuba Hubbard. So 2 picks I feel fairly good about that project pretty strongly right now in the fantasy points projections. And yeah, Hubbard is just going to eat for as long as this Carolina offense keeps cooking, and they probably should against Cincinnati. The Cincinnati pass rush looked non-existent last week. Have a lot of faith that Carolina can put up some points here, and Hubbard seems to be their only competent back right now until Jonathan Brooks comes back.
Yeah, Hubbard's somebody that I have been targeting a little bit in like the battle royale streets, or the battle royale slash the dog bowl, like where it's 12 people drafting, goes pretty late in those drafts. That's a very solid value pick. Cincinnati's defense has been pretty bad against the run, so I do like that pick. And I think you and I are going to have all the leverage against each other, Jake, because I'm going to go with Jordan Mason, another one of the top value picks on the site. He's up to 6,700, so the price keeps going up. I don't love the matchup with New England, who I still think is a pretty good defense, but the volume is so good for Jordan Mason that I can't resist it. I am going to lean into the projections after my whole speech about not leaning into projections. I'm just leaning into some of the top point per dollar plays with Deontay Johnson and Jordan Mason.
Drew, can I hate on that pick before Drew goes? Yeah. Can I hate on your Jordan Mason pick? Trent Williams is sick. The best blocking tight end in the NFL is questionable. As I mentioned earlier, New England is the #1 pass funnel in the NFL, and they have a fantastic run defense. By yards before contact allowed per attempt, they're giving up less than 1 yard before contact allowed per attempt. Bottom 2 in the NFL. It's a good workload, but the matchup is absolutely brutal, and probably won't crack the top 8 best values at running back this week.
Are you done? I wasn't really listening because Jake hasn't beat me in this contest yet, so it's really hard for me to take criticism from Jake. So that was appreciate you saying some words there. But once you beat me, I'll start taking the criticism more seriously. Drew, on to you. 2 back-to-back picks here.
Love that. So one of the reasons why I wanted to go Roshan was because, to my point earlier, value is tough. And I think there's a lot of high-priced A, receivers, and B, running backs that are really good value. I'm going to go 2 receivers here. I'm going to go Marvin Harrison, and I'm going to go Nico Collins. I think both of those picks are extremely in amazing matchup. Marvin Harrison at 7,500. Look, Washington allows the most fantasy points to opposing receivers. We all know that. We saw Jamar Chase. The Commanders are the 9th lowest in pressure rate in the league, and that's when I think about the Cardinals. And when I think about Kyler, he does best when he is not being pressured. You give Marvin Harrison some time, he is going, and I'm really excited about that matchup this week. Nico Collins, we saw how badly the Jags got decimated last week, or even just a few nights ago against the Bills. Nico Collins, by far their top receiver, obviously. He leads the league by 50 yards in total yards. He has a much higher ADOT than Diggs. A lot of people are now, with Tank banged up, or a lot of people are now thinking that's a Diggs week, maybe, right? And I think that could still play out a little bit. But we saw Nico Collins, I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, they were force-feeding Nico Collins. 10 targets, only 4 catches, still got 86 yards. I think he's a smash play this week. And the ability of grabbing Roshan, who is also in a great matchup, now opens up the door for me to grab 2 mid-7K receivers.
I like those picks. Marvin Harrison, are you worried about the Q tag at all?
No.
Yeah, I mean, seems as though, just to add on to it, Trey McBride probably going to miss this week, so should be just funneling to Marvin Harrison. Hard to argue with that pick. And Nico Collins, just he might be a top 5 receiver in the NFL. It's really, really hard to argue with Nico Collins basically every week. I think he's just going to be targeted a ton with Tank Dell out. Hard to disagree with those picks with the value that you got with your first pick. All right. Now I just get one pick. That's a tough thing with being in the middle here. Is you kind of want to make like tandem picks. I feel like is a little bit easier to do sometimes, just so you know kind of what value you have to work with. Not the case for me here. Let me think about it for a second. Actually, let me check my. I had a thought about somebody I might want to take here.
While Neil thinks, I just wanted to mention that Jacksonville, further, just emphasizing how good your Nico Collins pick was. Jacksonville's running 62% man coverage right now. I tweeted about this earlier today.
I saw
the highest mark we've seen in the last 2 full seasons is 42%, which was the 2022 New York Giants. Nico Collins is about 25% better on a per route basis for fantasy, targets per out run, yards per out run against man coverage. It's going to be a great matchup for Stroud and any healthy Houston receiver, but I think Collins is probably in the best spot there.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yep. Very solid. I went with Rome last week. I think I'm going to go with DJ Moore this week. I think against the Rams, it's another great matchup here for the Bears. I think we haven't really seen it yet from DJ Moore. The connection hasn't quite gotten there with DJ Moore and Caleb Williams, but I think it still very much could happen this week. So I'll go there. All right, on to Jake for back-to-back picks.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'd like to capture a little bit more value on the board. So I will take another wide receiver who has a fantastic matchup this week in Michael Wilson at just 4,200 for Arizona. This Washington pass defense is a complete disaster. And with no McBride, you could argue that maybe Washington with their, 170-pound corners ends up double teaming Marvin Harrison. I don't know, if they will end up doing that or how effective that will be, but, Michael Wilson is still in a pretty great spot here, given the way the board looks. Let's see. Definitely not going tight end. I feel like I should probably go running back here. I just went value. I'll grab Kyren Williams. The workload is just absolutely insane for Kyren. He's seeing, every backfield touch. It makes it even more confusing that, LA held Blake Corum out of the preseason. I mean, for what? They're not giving him the ball at all. It's, very confusing signal there from Sean McVay. My only concern with Kyren this week is that the Bears are actually 3-point favorites, which made me do a bit of a double take. Kyren is notoriously, I think, like 80% more productive in wins relative to losses, although the pass game role is still pretty strong. And Chicago's notoriously been a great pass game matchup for running backs. So, I see some ways that play could fail, but, just from a projection standpoint, it looks great.
Yeah, the volume is so solid for Kyren. Really, really the only concern is the matchup. And I think he should be fine anyway. Man, do I do it now? Yeah, I think we see back-to-back weeks for Jamar Chase here against Carolina. I've got Deontay, so I've got the little game stack going on here with Deontay and add Jamar Chase to it. I've made the mistake in the past of not spending up early not going up to get my guys and trying to get all the value early. So I think now if I feel strongly about some of the plays that I like, even if they're not cheap, I think I'm going to go out of my way to get some of those. So it is Jamar Chase for me. I still have 46.60 left per player. So not great from that perspective. But I think I'll be able to make it work. And then back to Drew, you have 5,200 left per player. And you have back-to-back picks here.
Love it. Thank you. So first of all, I just want to call out a couple of things. Both of your picks, I love. I think that over-under in the Bears-Rams game is insane, right? I think it's way too low. The Rams passing defense is awful. They allow the second highest ADOT in the league, a 72% catchable ball rate, 259 yards per game, and a QB rate of 127.5 to opposing QBs, second only to the Commanders. So I think your DJ Moore play is amazing. If Nico and Marvin Harrison didn't come back to me last round, DJ Moore was my backup pick. And to your point, Kyren, it might not be done through the run game next week or this week. It might be done through the passing game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears scored 3 touchdowns via the passing game. I think Rome would have been a great pick as well. And he's in my consideration here. Instead, I'm going to go with George Pickens. I think he's a really good play this week. And I'm tempted to actually take Justin Fields. The Colts allow the 10th highest passer rating in the league at 107.3. One of our concerns with the Steelers in general and that offense is how slow they play, but the Colts actually play pretty fast. And so this notion that they play too slow and their volume is too low to allow Pickens and or Fields to have a good game, I think is flawed. The Colts also allow the 7th highest ADOT and 5 passing touchdowns on the year, which is 7th place, 7th worst, depending on how you look at it. So I think Pickens is great. I'm not going to pick Justin Fields here. I have a couple quarterbacks in my back pocket that I'm going to grab, but I'm going to fill in my second running back position here with Brian Robinson. Now with Eckler out, he's in for a full workload. It's not the best matchup, but I do think that he just has the workload to pay it off and is not that expensive. So I'm going to grab him here.
Drew down to 48.50 left per player with 4 picks remaining. But one of those defense, one of those tight ends. So pretty easy to get cheap at those positions. Not a big concern. Yeah, Pickens, honestly, not somebody that I had given much thought to, but like this is one of those matchups that is very exploitable. Like we just saw last week with Rome against this Colts defense. Yep. Certainly Pickens could get it done as well. So I kind of like that pick as one that I have not given a ton of thought to. All right, so I have 46.60 left per player. So I am going to need some value here at some point. Let me see if there's a running back I like here. I liked that. I liked that Chuba Hubbard pick. I gotta say that was a pretty solid pick here.
Thank you, Neil. I really appreciate it.
I will. Got to give you credit when it is due. Occasionally, once a week, I'll give you credit for something.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to go. That.
Yeah, exactly. It's not something that comes easily. Wait, all right. So I think we got to go cheap at tight end, and there are a few that I like here. Let me just see how many great options we have here. Damn. Okay. There might be enough options at tight end that I don't feel like I need to make that decision just yet. So I think I'm going to wait on that. Do I go quarterback? Like what? No. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with Andre Yoshivas. The coach speak after the win last week, very, very promising for Yoshi. Another game where he was actually targeted a little bit more than he's, looked like he was only going to be targeted in the end zone. We finally saw him targeted a few more times late in that game last week. I think he's been pretty good with the targets he's gotten. So at this price tag where I'm kind of hurting for value, I think he is a good addition to my game stack here. Even with T. Higgins back, that is somewhat of a concern for me. But I think that at 4,100, I think the price is right there for Yoshi. Jake, I'll send it to you to make back-to-back picks here.
Yeah, before I pick, I wanted to mention, Neil, you've got a pretty full game stack going for that Carolina-Cincinnati game. I actually was thinking about going to that. I live about 3 hours away from Charlotte. I was really hoping 3 straight stinkers from Carolina would drive ticket prices down to an ungodly low level. Andy Dalton's week 3 start drove ticket prices for that game up 35%. That's how rejuvenated this fan base is. So I may not be going because the tickets I was eyeing just, they really cranked up in price, but I'll keep my eye on it. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen a quarterback go yet. And to me, I think there's one play that kind of stands head and shoulders above the rest, especially for a format like this, and it's Jaden Daniels. He's the QB1 on this slate by fantasy points per game, but he's priced as, I believe, the QB6, QB7. Just looked absolutely incredible against Cincinnati last week. Arizona is another really, really strong matchup here. So I really, really like Jalen Daniels in pretty much all formats. I imagine he'll be, right there as the chalkiest quarterback of the week. And then for my second pick here, let's see, I've got 4,900 remaining. Probably want to look at some cheaper wide receivers. I'm going to go Ray McLeod. who's just getting way too many targets in this Atlanta offense. The way they're distributing targets has been very strange. Drake London, Kyle Pitts seem a bit like afterthoughts, while Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod are absolutely dominating. Either way, it's a pick that gives me plenty of salary flexibility for my last few picks. And, just looking at the board, I think there are some guys I can get excited about on the higher end, but in terms of value, it's getting pretty dry.
Yes, it is. All right. Before we continue on, because this show, we go pretty fast, so we can take questions sometimes. We did get a question, and I want to throw it to you guys. That guy says, would y'all give Zach Moss and Shakir for AJ Brown and Justice Hill? The thing is that I would be left with, I think that is Achane, Pollard, and Swift at running back. My answer is yes. I mean, AJ Brown is just, to me, by far the best player in that entire, he's the one player that I would feel really happy to start every week, obviously when he's healthy. And I don't feel that strongly about Zach Moss. So to me, it's pretty clearly yes. Are you guys on the same page?
Yeah, for sure. You go first, Drew.
My only thing in season-long trades is whenever you can get the best player as part of a deal, because throughout the season, you're going to fill in bye weeks, injuries, handcuffs, you name it. If you can get the best player, and to your point, AJ Brown is certainly the best player who should be back within a week or two, I think the idea of grabbing AJ Brown here is definitely the right choice.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna echo that. I mean, if it's ever, two kind of mediocre players for an alpha, I think you always make that trade. But almost as important, potentially, is that I think Chase Brown could overtake Zach Moss at some point. So his profile has a little bit of risk there. I mean, Chase Brown has just looked so good as a rusher so far. So, that's another thing to keep in mind. Neil, dropped your video for a second. I was worried, but you're back.
Yeah, my it's just my camera. I don't know what is going on with my camera just this week. My wife and I made plans to go to Best Buy. I was going to get a new laptop and a new camera before doing any content for week 4, and then just did not do that. Had a lot of had actually some things come up yesterday, so was not able to go to Best Buy. So I still have the same camera I've been using, which is just clearly on the fritz after in its probably 3rd year that I've been doing this now. So I need to get a new camera here. I do have a backup. I could just use my computer's camera. I try to avoid it, but scared to show. I mean, why would I be scared to show my face to Jake, who I have yet to lose to? I don't know if you guys have heard. I have yet to lose to Jake in this DFS cage match. So I just can't imagine why you would think I would be afraid to show my face here. All right. And the other thing that Bink King was bringing up, Braylon Allen. He says, I know it's early in the week, but what do you guys think Braylon Allen ownership will come in at? It'll be low. I think it's going to be super low. I mean, Breece Hall is still there. I think Braylon Allen, 5,400. I saw the comment and I thought Braylon Allen must be like min priced to think he's going to get any kind of ownership. But no, at 5,400, I have zero interest in Braylon Allen in a 3-man contest. Maybe in a GPP you can consider it, but yeah, I think he's going to be super low owned. Do you guys see it any differently?
Yeah, I saw the same comment and actually did the exact same thing as you. Is he A, min price? B, did I miss news on Breece? And neither of those are true. Look, I do get the angle on it. They are at home and they are favored by more than a touchdown against the Broncos. That's all good and dandy, but we shouldn't be projecting more than 10 touches for Braylon Allen, if that. And so I think at 5,400, that's too much.
Yeah. Bruce, that's an interesting. He says holding in suspense 3 running back week every week is in the new old NFL. Do you guys think that's going to be a thing going forward? Just like having a 3rd running back in the flex? Do you think that will be like the new, meta?
Yeah. Jake, sorry, I'll jump in here super quickly. So Scott and Barrett and I were talking a little bit leading into last week, and that was actually my angle, right? I actually stated one of the things that I'm changing this year versus prior years is that I'm forcing more running back into the flex. I'm guaranteeing those touches and going for running back. I don't think that's always going to be the case. I think we saw it last year where early weeks scored less. And then as the season goes on, the offenses get better. And there's this ability for now receivers to then slowly make their way into a more optimal flex. I think we're kind of at that midway point now where I think a 3rd running back in flex is fine. I think a receiver is fine. Jake, do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm fine going either direction there. I mean, running back workloads have been significantly better this season than last. But, I mean, we know that these wide receivers can put up absolutely massive scores. And when you think of the guys who generally drop 35, I mean, running backs are doing it just about as often as wide receivers. So, I think both are fine in tournaments.
Yeah. Same thing. I've never actually set any kind of rule for what happens in my flex, but I think it'll be probably just continue to be a mix for me. All right, now I got to think about my tight end. So I've got 19,200 left with 4 spots remaining. One of them being a running back. Got a tight end. I think maybe I should fill in my running back spot here. All right. Do I trust Carson Steele? He was pretty good last week. Kansas City should be able to run all over them. I have to at least think about it there. Dameon Pierce might be back for this one, so I don't love the going to Akers again this week with Dameon Pierce potentially coming back. It's tough. The running back value is not extremely great. I think Drew kind of got the one piece that is a great running back value. I'm not seeing anybody else that I love at running back. So I think actually, before I do it, I will, after saying that I'm not going to be too overly reliant on projections. I think I got to give it one more look before I do something that's just too wild. Although it worked out for me last week, I guess Romo Dunze was and David Montgomery were the ones that were very suboptimal plays, and they worked out just fine. But I don't know that I want to rely on that working out so well every week. Pretty far down in the value rankings. Is there a better value? Technically. Oh God. I hate all of the values so much. All of the like better point per dollar plays are just so gross to me that I don't know I can do it. So maybe I'm just going to hold off on this pick. Not going to rely on any one of them because I don't really care which one of them it is because I hate them all so much. Actually, maybe that's a reason for me to, instead of paying up at quarterback for Joe Burrow, which was kind of my plan here to do the double stack, I'm going to pay down to Andy Dalton, 5,300. I have Deontay, just hope that he funnels it to Deontay. I think the way this build is setting up and with how bad the value is at running back, I think I just have to go with a cheaper quarterback there because I think Andy Dalton might just be really good. All right. Drew, you now have back-to-back picks. You have quarterback, tight end, flex, and defense remaining. 48.50 left per player. Thinking about it?
Oh, is Drew frozen? That's quite
I
a
thought I saw him
pondering
move,
face.
but I know. I really thought. I thought that I saw him move. I was kind of questioning if he was frozen because he wasn't saying anything, and he's not usually one to like sit there in silence after I prompt him. Hopefully Drew comes back because we're kind of stuck here until Drew does come back. This was
wild. Scott put this in our Discord, and I think he just tweeted it. It looks like a reporter asked Kyle Shanahan about Brandon Ayuk's separation win rate. So it wasn't a direct question about ass, but it was referencing, one of our famous separation statistics, which is pretty cool to see those make their way into an NFL press conference here.
That is very cool. Yeah, I had not seen. I wasn't sure if that was a joke about that being presented to Kyle Shanahan, but pretty cool if it was. Drew, can you hear us? Okay. I thought he was in there. Maybe that was Trey that was in there. I don't know. We will give Drew a few minutes to come back here because we can't really finish the show without him. He does have back-to-back turns here. So Jake, let's talk a little bit about what you have going on now. We usually save it for the end of the show, but you want to tell me what you have coming up?
Yeah. So if you guys enjoy watching me on here. You'll probably also enjoy the DFS early look, which is both an article and a video that I do with Thomas Tipple. So that comes out every Tuesday. Obviously do this show with Neil and our esteemed guests. And then Friday is also another big day for me. I help Scott Barrett a ton with his weekly slate breakdown. So if you ever read or appreciate that, some of that writing is mine, which is a little unbelievable considering I was, a huge Scott Barrett fan growing up, and now I get to work with the guy. And then Friday nights, I do back-to-back shows. So the first one is Cashing Points. It's generally me, Graham Barfield, and Hilo. Mark Garcia, he does a lot of work with 1 Week Season. Really, really sharp, like game theory analyst. So we sort of walk the slate for DFS, go game by game, talk about our favorite plays, talk about various leverage angles, just sort of how you want to handle the slate. It's a very all-encompassing DFS show. And then immediately after that, me and Ryan Heath, who I'm sure many of you guys have heard of from his great work on Twitter or on FantasyPoints.com, we do the Underdog Drafter Party, which is a battle royale style underdog show where we just draft teams, drink some beer, have a good time, talk about the slate from a battle royale perspective. That's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed sort of diving into battle royale game theory and the various contest types. I think Underdog's doing a really good job posting a bunch of different, sort of contests. There are a lot of small field stuff, 12-man drafts. It's a lot of fun, and we are trying to grow the Battle Royale product here at the site. It's a tough pitch for Scott because he's, all in on DFS and generally doesn't want, two of his better analysts wasting time on Battle Royale stuff. But, we've gotten good engagement and pretty strong reception on the show so far. So if you guys ever have any questions on the slate, we generally can't get to as many during Cashing Points, but during the drafter party, we'll have time in between picks or time waiting for drafts to fill. Always happy to answer anybody's questions and to just hang out. So yeah, it's a really fun show. And we hope to get Neil on at some point eventually, as long as he stops rejecting me every time I ask him if he's free.
I do. I have historically rejected you every week, but I would like to come on at some point. And I think it's a good idea, despite Scott's reservations. I think it's a good idea to get ahead of it because I think that's just a growing industry, those battle royales.
Yeah, that was my pitch, was that, DFS is kind of plateauing, battle royales on the upswing. Why don't we hop in here, especially when there's just such a black hole with content for battle royale? Like no one's really doing it. Most of the people who would be good at battle royale are they'd rather focus on DFS. So it's, I think, a pretty good, opening for sharper players. Maybe if you're, maybe if you lost a little interest in DFS, or if you're thinking about trying something new, I think battle royale is a great place to start. Yeah,
agreed. Drew, we lost you for a while. Having some difficulties with your internet out there in your dungeon?
Not even. So you talked about your laptop. I pulled up the site that I typically do in order to grab a line that I wanted, an over-under that I wanted, and it totally shut down the whole computer. So apologies. Well, I had to reset that. Not sure what happened. But I'm ready. I'm ready to roll.
Okay.
Vegas is obviously conspiring so that you don't bet that line, Drew.
They really don't want you to, because I seriously think the Rams and the Bears line is absurd. So I might hammer that as soon as I can.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern there would be Bears defense is, I think, pretty good, and the Rams don't have an offensive line. So maybe the Rams just don't score at all. So whatever the line is, you have to think, are the Bears going to score this many points? Because the Rams aren't going to score any.
The Bears will absolutely score a ton of points. I would not be surprised if they go 4 touchdowns, and it's on me for a double pick. Am I right?
It is on you for a double pick here.
Cool. So you talked about Rome being one of your picks last week. He was 5% owned in tournaments. I had about 40% last week, and I'm going back to the well. And in the back of your mind, you might be thinking, well, Drew, do you know that Keenan Allen is back? So the Rams allowed the second highest ADOT. Rome Odunze is one of the top ADOTs in the league at over 17, I believe it is. And the Rams actually stop the slot. The second lowest target share to the slot. Keenan Allen, when he's played over 60% of his snaps from the slot. And so I'm not concerned that Keenan Allen is back. If anything, I think that actually helps Rome, because in the first couple of weeks, Rome Odunze played 20% of his snaps in the slot. Week 3, he played 40%. So now I think we're going to see that flip back to 20%, which is where you can beat the Rams. And I think he's another smash play this week.
Yep. I like that pick. And you have another one.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm just going to go the quarterback, and I have a lot of faith in the Bears this week, but I'm going to go Caleb Williams for a lot of the same reasons that I mentioned earlier. They are allowing a QB rating of 127.5, second only to the Commanders. I think this is an amazing spot. I'm a little concerned that I now have 3 Bears, but ultimately, to my point, I think they can score 3 to 4 touchdowns. And in this type of environment, I think I lock up all the points that I project the Bears to score in this manner. You have DJ Moore, which hurts me a little bit, but ultimately I think I'm in a good spot.
Yeah, I can't wait for DJ Moore to score all of the touchdowns. Like Caleb throws for 300 yards, but happens to be all to DJ Moore. I mean, that would just be so wonderful for me. So hopefully just all goes to DJ Moore.
In that scenario, at least I beat Jake, which I know is a little easy to do, but
it is very easy to beat. Like, I don't even think about whether I'm going to beat Jake. It's all really, I kind of consider this like it's a 2-man show, me and the guest. Yeah. So I'm not that concerned about Jake. But yeah, I guess that's true.
I didn't realize the past influenced the future as much as you guys did. So appreciate you guys pointing that out.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. The past influences the future. All right. So I have 46-33 left per player with 3 picks left, running back, tight end, and defense. Now I think I have to move up a tier in terms of paying for running backs, because I really don't like cheap running backs available. I do kind of like James Conner, and I think Washington really susceptible through the air, but I don't think they have a great defense on the ground either. I think James Conner, I love the usage that he gets there. I think Arizona's offense is very good, and it could just be a high-scoring game. So hoping for James Conner to score a touchdown or two. I think that's the pick for me there. Jake, we'll throw it back to you. You get back-to-back picks. You have 5,400 left per player with a tight end, a flex, and a defense remaining. Who's it going to be for you?
Yeah, I was playing around with a couple different combinations, and I think I can get the one tight end that I feel good about in really any capacity this week, which is Dallas Goedert, obviously with no Devontae Smith, potentially no AJ Brown. Goedert could be in for a pretty massive workload. And then that enables me to get the guy who I think is probably my favorite high-priced running back for tournament purposes in Bijan Robinson. New Orleans is notoriously bad, at least this season, against zone runs, and Bijan Robinson has been one of the league's most effective runners on zone runs, which make up about 75, or I think it was 80% of his total carries so far. So this is, I think, a really great matchup for Bijan here. Really excited to see what he can do against a New Orleans defense that's been quite weak against the run.
And still 3,700 left at defense. I like that Bijan pick. All right, comes back to me. I have 37. Wait, I did that wrong. I clicked the wrong tab. I meant to click up here. I do also have 3,700 left per player with a tight end and a defense remaining. Do I eat into to Drew's stack a little bit more with Cole Kmet? Just take most of his good pass catchers. That's at least a thought for me. Got a revenge game going for Zach Ertz against Arizona. Taysom, 3,800. Looks like he should be back this week, available at tight end. A lot of really strong tight end options here. And I don't really need to go that cheap as much as I'm tempted to. Let me just look at the defense prices real quick. Yeah. All right. Screw it. I am going to take Cole Kmet. I think he's just going to continue to be more and more involved, and I think the Bears should be able to score quite a bit this week. Feels bad to take a $4,400 Cole Kmet when Kyle Pitts is there at 4,800, but I think Cole Kmet is just going to be pretty involved. Now that they have decided that he is their lead tight end, finally, I don't know what took them a week of Gerald Everett first, but I think Cole Kmet could just be the guy going forward. So I'm going to go there for my tight end pick, and I'll throw it to Drew.
Yeah, I think that's a fair pick. I don't think we're going to see the amount of targets for Cole Kmet that we saw last week, but I think that's totally fine. So tight end and defense for me, we talked about it as we were kicking off. Tight end looks a little rough in my opinion. And in a situation like this, I've purposely left myself a little salary so that I could go to somebody like Brock Bowers, and I might grab him. The matchup isn't good, but ultimately if I can get that amount of talent plus that amount of usage and target share, I'm going to take it. So Brock Bowers locked me in, which I believe leaves me 3,000. I'm going to go the Texans at home. I think this is an opportunity against the Jags that Trevor Lawrence looks, I think we all saw the clip of him spinning around in the pocket. He looks broken right now. The Houston defense, Scott Barrett tweeted about this last week. Their pass defense is sneaky bad sometimes, and on paper they're good, but they do apply pressure. Trevor Lawrence is not seeing and reading things well right now, so I think this is a good opportunity to close out my team with the Texans D.
I got to be honest, that one hurt me a little bit. I left 3,000 on purpose, thinking nobody's going to have 3,000 and take the Texans. That's clearly the defense that I want. Love the spot against Trevor Lawrence. So well done. Well done. Of course, last week I kept on getting sniped and didn't really hurt me. In the end, that only helped me for Jake and Jordan last week to be sniping all the picks that I actually wanted to take. So so hopefully that's the case this week, and that Jacksonville just absolutely destroys them. You get negative points out of the defense. I guess that's what I'm hoping for at this point. So I have 3,000 left, and I can't take the Texans. Not going to take the Packers against my Vikings. Don't love taking the Eagles against Baker. I think Tampa's been pretty good. That's one that I'll have to at least think about, though. I think Jordan Love is back. Otherwise, I would go with the Vikings, I think, against Malik Willis. Yeah, I have limited options that I really like here, so I'm going to have to.
Good. I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I bet you are. Man, Patriots pretty good defense. San Francisco's offense. I mean, we talked about how bad they have been without all their stars, and they're missing Trent Williams. I do have Jordan Mason, so I'm already kind of making a bet against the Patriots defense. So maybe I just need to do the I'll do the Eagles. Hope they don't get absolutely crushed by Tampa here. Don't love it. Would have much preferred the Texans, but it's defense. I don't care all that much. So leaving $100 on the table with the Eagles defense there. And then I will throw it to Jake to make the final pick here. Who is your defense going to be? 3,700 remaining for you, Jake.
Yeah, I've been thinking about a variety of defenses here. I even thought really galaxy brain about taking the Rams because you guys combined, I believe, have 5 Bears. So that would be some pretty incredible leverage on the Rams defense, but I can't bring myself to leave, what would it be, 900,000 on the table. I think I'm just going to go with the Browns. Vegas offense has just looked like a complete disaster. And while I don't have much faith in Cleveland's offense, I certainly do have some with their defense, especially if they're going to be playing, Aiden O'Connell here. Just not a great offensive season so far from Las Vegas, and helps me only leave 200 on the table, which always makes me feel pretty smart.
So the one that I was sure you were going to go to, the Jets against Denver there. So I was a little bit surprised. I think I was thinking Browns feel like a pretty similar bet, just a good offense against a bad defense. But what was the tiebreaker there? You think Las Vegas's offense is worse than Denver's offense? Is that kind of, or Denver doesn't throw as much? What's kind of the thought process there?
Yeah, so it was kind of two things that broke the tie for me. One was that Denver seemed a little bit more competent last week, and while I don't have a ton of faith in Bo Nix, I think I'd rather bet on the offense that's on a clear downswing. I mean, Antonio Pierce was talking about benching basically everyone after their game last week. So, things have been pretty bad in Vegas. And then also, I think it's just, especially with defense, really important to reference projections. Of course, early in the week, projections aren't as strong, but it is important to keep in mind that, they factor in everything that your brain can and more. So, when in doubt, especially in a 3-man, I'll just default to the higher projected defense, which right now for us is Cleveland.
All right. Makes sense. Well, let's do our final reviews before we get out of here. Jake, you're already going talking about your defense, but tell me about the rest of your team. How do you feel about it? You go with an unstacked quarterback here in Jaden Daniels, who famously doesn't run at all. So you can't really get there without throwing the ball a lot. No, tell me about your team here.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels only averaging 57 rushing yards per game. So yeah, he doesn't run at all. But he has been, he's the best fantasy quarterback.
And he throws to offensive linemen.
Ooh, yeah, not great. It's a good thing I, didn't have any Washington pass catchers on my team. Also, not too worried about stacking in a 3-man. I'm not sure if if that occurred to you as a GPP bro, Neil, but generally not something you're going out of your way to do. So yeah, really love my Jaden Daniels pick here. I think I got the best quarterback on the board. I think I grabbed a lot of strong, running back volume and value overall between Hubbard, Kyron Williams, and Bijan Robinson. Those are, I wrote up a bunch of running backs for Scott today, and those were some of my favorite plays on the board. Wide receiver, I'm a bit more iffy. I did grab 2 strong value plays in Michael Wilson and Ray McLeod. So hopefully some of those guys can come through for me. But Brandon Ayuk, I'm certainly excited about. I already mentioned, New England major pass funnel, run a lot of man. Certainly a good spot for Ayuk there. And then Goddard, I think I'm really just hoping that AJ Brown sits. I believe he posted on Instagram a meme or some sort of image that might have indicated he could go this week. So if AJ Brown sits, Goddard's pretty much a lock for 10 plus targets. If he plays, things get a little bit more iffy there for me at tight end. But overall, feel pretty strong about the team. I believe I can bring home $100 for Friends of North Augusta Animals this week.
Maybe this is your week in week 4.
Maybe it's the best I'll get from Neil, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean that is the best you'll get from me for sure. Devontae Smith also pretty likely to miss this week, right?
Yeah.
I think even more likely than AJ Brown. So
I could not believe they didn't throw an unnecessary roughness flag on that hit. He was basically picked up and being driven back. The play was over, and then Jalen Carter came in head down and speared him like right at the the knockout point that UFC fighters go for. It was insane.
It was that was unfortunate. So probably no Devontae Smith this week. So Goddard benefits from that. I will go second, and then we'll throw it to Drew for the third review. My team, I did go with a stack. I'm just trying to. I don't just want to win. I want to do what I did last week and win by 80, 90 points is kind of the goal. So I understand you don't need to in a 3-man, but I just feel so good about my superiority as a drafter. These days, after a couple weeks, kind of getting my feet under me, getting used to it. But now that I had those couple of weeks to prepare, I just feel like I'm going to win these by 80, 90 points every week is kind of the goal. And I think stacking probably makes that the easiest way to do that. So I did get the full on game stack, Andy Dalton to DeAndre Johnson for 4 touchdowns, maybe. We've got Jamar Chase and Yoshivas each getting a touchdown. Chase will get a couple, Dalton probably outscores Joe Burrow just barely, but it's going to be a really high scoring game there. Jordan Mason. All right, I'll be honest here instead of just bravado. I don't totally love Jordan Mason. All the projections, he just projects so well point per dollar that I'm like kind of felt like I have to, even though he only scored 10, 11 fantasy points last week in the nut matchup with the Rams. Now it gets a tough matchup and he projects everywhere for significantly more. But I think still the volume is too good to pass up. I don't know.
They're massive favorites. They're 10.5 point favorites. So
that's a good point. So the volume should be, yeah. Don't love the matchup, but you're right. They are too big of favorites for him to not get a ton of touches here. So go with Jordan Mason. James Conner, I do really like. I just think the volume is really solid there. Decent matchup with Washington, even though I think that they're worse through the air. I think it's just a susceptible defense overall. Should have more opportunities to potentially score. Already talked about the full stack. I really do think the Cincinnati-Carolina game could be a lot of fun, could be a lot of fireworks there. DJ Moore, we talked about, just love the matchup with the Rams. I think DJ Moore is going to have a spike weeks at some point throughout the year. I think this is as good a spot as any for DJ Moore to do so. I am sort of doubting myself with the Kmet pick because when you think about it more, you're right. With Keenan Allen returning this week, I don't think Kmet is going to be a focal point of the offense. So I think it probably was kind of an outlier there, and I kind of paid up for an outlier week. But it is what it is. Still a great matchup, and that way Drew doesn't get him at least. So love that. Eagles defense, I was forced into it. Don't love it, but I think could still be a fine defense. I'm not sure. I'm not totally sold on Tampa being a dominant offense for the entire year. So that's where we end up with this one. Going to try to continue my streak to be the first person to ever win back-to-back weeks. We've had the entity of the guest win back-to-back weeks, but never the same person back-to-back. So hoping to be the first this week. Drew, you could stand in the way here, get the guests back on track after they got thrown off last week. How do you feel about your team? How do you feel about your odds of guests going 3-1?
I feel great. I think, you won one matchup and you're feeling a little cocky. I think you went a little off the rails there towards the end. 2 Bears receivers without quarterback, 2 Bengals receivers without quarterback. I understand that's a game stack, but I think you went a little off the rails. I threw you off with the defense pick too. I'm pretty confident that I'm going to win here. I did my homework. Roshan opened up the door for me to do anything I wanted the rest of the way. There was a couple cheap stacks that I really liked. Look, I'm putting a lot of faith in the Bears, but they're at home. They're against the Rams. The Rams defense has not looked good. We saw what Juwan Jennings did last week. Brock Purdy looked amazing. I have no doubt that Caleb Williams can't do the exact same thing against the Rams at home. And so with that being said, I'm pretty much guaranteeing a victory here. And I'll take a next step further. If I do not win this 3-man here, I will donate $100 myself to Feeding America.
What a guy. All right. So Drew, we're going to get a donation to Feeding America, regardless of how Drew's team does, which makes me feel better because when I win this week, then we'll get 2 different causes, great causes, getting donations. All right. So Drew, we talked a little bit earlier about your podcast that you just started today. Do you want to remind people where they can find that or anything else you have going on?
Yeah. The podcast is truly just for fun, and that's the only thing I have going on. You know, it's a passion project for Justin Steele and I. Both of us tweeted about it today on his Twitter and on my Twitter. We just hope that people jump in, listen. It's a light conversation, some fun. We'll bring in guests. And hoping that ultimately people enjoy it. It's just a couple guys talking football, all things football, as if you're off at your buddy's house or at the bar talking football. That's the whole goal. So appreciate anyone tuning in.
And it's the No Huddle podcast. You can probably find it on YouTube. Probably the easiest way to find it is just go on Twitter at Fantasy Guru. Drew is Drew's name. He's posted the links there. If you want to go check out that podcast with Drew and Cubs All-Star Justin Steele. Really, really fun podcast there. Jake, we kind of went over it earlier when Drew was out, but just remind people one more time where they can find your stuff coming up.
Yeah, all my stuff is over at FantasyPoints.com, helping Scott Barrett out with his weekly slate breakdown. Also do cashing points every Friday at 7, and the Underdog Drafter Party where me and Ryan Heath draft some Battle Royale teams every Friday at 8:30. So definitely go check those out if you're ever bored on a Friday, or if you want to watch a replay, can do that Saturday, Sunday. You can just watch it over and over again if you really love it that much.
Absolutely. Why not just watch those battle royales over and over? You might learn a lot. Go check out Jake's content as well. And my content, of course, I've got the Thursday Night Football write-up coming out tomorrow at Fantasy Points for the Thursday Night Football Showdown contest. I'll also be doing 2 shows on my own YouTube channel tomorrow. That's the Flannelverse. I'll be doing in the morning a breakdown with Adam Ship My Money Share. We go hour and a half talking about the Thursday Night Football game. And then closer to lock, sometimes you get more inactive news closer to lock. So I like to be on air when that news comes out so I can react to that. So right when inactives come out, 90 minutes before the game start, I will be going live again to talk about the slate tomorrow night. All right. Thank you, as always, Jake. Always a good time. Drew, thank you for joining us this week. And of course, audience, we always appreciate you guys hanging out with us, giving us a chance to do this show. Appreciate you sticking with us. Thanks, guys, and we will catch you next week.
What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.